Good morning, yogis. Today we are going to focus on a chair pose variation or a chair pose squat, and we are also going to play with a little twisting at the same time. So I hope you enjoy that, but we'll get started. I'm going to use my block for my chair pose just to get set up, and then you can of course ditch the block if you don't feel like you need it or want it. But just play with that. If you have a block handy, you might want to grab it for this one. So finding your chair pose, I'm going to turn to the side so you can see a little bit better. I'm going to place the block and squeeze the block with my thighs. So finding the block to where you can hold it without it pinching is the key here. So that forces my feet to be about hips width distance, my hips width distance apart. So I'm going to sit down into this chair pose. So just like I'm sitting down on a tall stool, I'm going to try and draw my knees back a little bit. So I'm going to try and keep my heart lifted and find my chair pose here. So activating through the thighs, lifting the toes, settling down into that chair pose a little bit more. So it's hard to keep the knees over the ankles this way, but just try and go for it. Take a few breaths. If the shoulders are giving you trouble, you could find the table arms, hands at heart center, or you can continue to lift them towards the sky. So removing that block, taking the feet closer together. If you have no knee trouble or hip trouble or back trouble, toes can be together, feet can be a little bit wider. So again, finding my chair pose, sitting down, keeping a nice flat spine. You want to avoid that big curve in the spine just to get into that chair pose. You want to keep the nice straight spine, heart lifted as much as you can, pulling back in the knees, arms can extend. Arms can find heart center, arms can find that reverse table. So that is your basic chair pose, standing up tall. So finding that chair pose squat. I'm going to lower on down to my half fold, so a nice flat back. I'm going to allow myself to fold down. So again, halfway lift and fold. And then I'm going to move into that chair pose squat. So I'm going to draw my feet in together. Again, if you have knee trouble or back trouble, you want to keep your feet farther apart. And I'm going to start to lean into this chair pose. So I'm sitting down into this chair pose, extending my arms out. So I'm really hinged in this chair pose, pulling my hips back so that my hamstrings are parallel with the earth. And then I'm going to come up onto the toes, finding a squat from my chair. Good. So this is it. A big workout for the ankles, a core workout, also a balancing pose here. Moving into my twist, grabbing my block, placing my block on my side. So what you want to think about is really pulling the left leg around, or the side you're twisting to, you want to pull that leg around, and maybe work that block around. Finding a nice big twist, maybe looking behind me, behind yourself, and then looking for that arm back there for extra balance. So make sure you get both sides and you spend equal time on both sides. Finding that twist, nice and big. You're pulling that block back. Arm extending out. So just a couple of good variations for you. Finding work in the ankles, the core, of course, legs, and balance. So that's all for today. Namaste, yogis.